Chrystia Freeland released her first campaign ad where she emphasized how she and Donald Trump did not get along. And I thought that might sell well with the Liberal Party base, but it's almost as if they want the war so they can campaign against Donald Trump instead of against Pierre Poilievre, and so they can blame economic damage on Trump instead of on themselves. I mean, it's almost too much to consider that they actually want the fight, that they would rather have the fight than fix the border issue.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I read Robert Lighthizer book because I wanted to understand.
He's a former trade rep?
He was the former trade rep, and he had the closest relationship with Chrystia Freeland because they were across the table from each other, to understand why things went so badly the first time around. And I guess what I'm dismayed by is that they didn't keep up those relationships. It was almost as if they used Donald Trump as a punching bag against Pierre Poilievre for the last 4 years, and then surprise, all of a sudden they're at the table again. And the relationship's been damaged. They should have been working overtime to repair it, and instead they're just doubling down. Our approach has always been very different. We have a trade representative representing Alberta in Washington, and we make friends on both sides of the aisle, because you never know. 1 year it might be a Republican, the next year it might be Democrat. You might see a change in the Congress partway through. You have to be able to have friends so that you can make sure that your interests are going to be protected. And I have to say, I haven't seen much of that from the federal government. It's very disappointing.
Let me ask you about the Trump side, because I know that Canada and Alberta have lots of relationships at the state level and even in Congress and the Senate. But Trump is his own man, very clearly. We know he's friends with Wayne Gretzky. We know he's friends with O'Leary. But I wonder if he has any friends that know the real deal about Canada economically, and especially about Alberta, and the fact that Alberta sells so much oil to America, frankly, at a discount to world prices. Do you sense that there's someone within Trump's inner circle that you can give real information to? Because the idea of putting a tariff on raw material, unrefined oil that goes into an American refinery, it just seems so self-defeating from an American point of view. I get the feeling that Trump, if he knew those facts, maybe he would avoid the tariffs. Do you have any connection with the Trump man or his team?
Well, I went last night to the Alberta First policy group. They were having an inauguration event. And this is the interesting thing, is this is a group that formed after Trump left office the first time. And they decided that they were going to put a policy framework around, should he get elected again, what that would look like. And many of the people who they identified through this America First initiative have been tapped to be in the administration. Ooh. And so that gives me a lot of confidence that they found some really solid people who understand their files. I'm particularly encouraged to see Chris Wright, who former CEO of Liberty Energy. He has been tapped as the nominee for energy. I'm very encouraged to see Doug Burgum, who is tapped for the Interior Secretary, which is an enormous ministry that's going to be responsible mostly for pipelines, but he's also the head of the Energy Council. He's got a fantastic relationship as former governor of North Dakota. He understands carbon capture. He understands the energy business in Canada. So there are really solid, thoughtful people like that who are in the administration, and I'll be looking forward to seeing what kind of role they take. But I would say with individuals like that, very close to the decision-making role or in decision-making roles themselves, I think building on those relationships will be very good for Canada.
Let me ask you about Justin Trudeau and Stephen Guilbeault. I have two thoughts about them. One is that they've always been opposed to the oil patch, and they've tried to ban tankers, tried to ban pipelines, tried to use the carbon tax. It's almost as if they're delighted with the prospect of making the oil patch this sacrifice industry. They can do it in the name of saving Canada from Trump, but it's actually been their secret plan all along, that they've always hated the oil patch, and that's why they just happen to come upon it as the sacrifice zone. Again, I don't want to look too much into motive, but these guys have expressed their motives for years. Am I being too dark here?
I want to acknowledge that we do have the Coastal GasLink pipeline that has been built, which will allow us to get our liquefied natural gas to the world. And we do have the Trans Mountain pipeline that was built. But we don't have built is Northern Gateway, which we needed, Energy East, which would have actually helped our eastern neighbors. We don't have $125 billion worth of projects that were so unsettled by the uncertainty that the federal government created that they just shelved their projects. So yes, there have been some minor movements towards increasing the amount of egress, but we could have done so much more. And so I think the problem with the Liberals is that in their moments of honesty, they tell you what they really believe. They say they were going to shut down the oil sands. You've got Stephen Guilbeault, who clearly wants to keep it in the ground. And this is the problem, is that they now have to pivot because we now have an American partner that may want to restart discussions about egress, whether it's Keystone XL or something else. We have an American partner who now wants energy dominance. And the way the Americans get energy dominance is because Canada is able to export to the Americans, and then the Americans are able to export to their friends and allies around the world. The way the Americans get energy security and affordability is because our discounted Canadian oil goes into U.S. refineries so that it can make cheap products with the help of 1.5 million American laborers to value add those products. These are selling features for us. So the federal government recognized that energy could be used as a point of leverage, but not by threatening to sell less, by promising to sell more. And that's why I'm here, is that we want to double our production. We want to double the amount going to America. We want to help them with their aspiration of energy dominance. And I think that that is a strategy that will help all of Canada. If we can say, we are your best friend, neighbor, we realize your aspirations, we can help you achieve them, we can be a partner in global energy security, there's no way that they would tariff Canada. And that's the point that I'm trying to make.